Last Sunday, I taught the pendulum. I'll go over a little bit of that now. Now I'm going to, but what I want to do today is bring in memory links, okay? So today's session is very much about the relationship between the pendulum and memory links. Just to go over some of what we've done these last two sessions on the pendulum. One part of it that's a place where this part of our work has a real a significant contribution to make in the field, and that is how a lot of what is called depression is lows on the pendulum.
Thank you.
And that's not, I think that's pretty much David Pellin's. It's in other things like manic depression, and it's in Common Sense, and it's in, I guess, the best of parenting, the best of parenting. It will all end in tears. The thing you've got to worry about with the birthday party for little ones. They're all going to get high as kites, and then they're going to crash down and get cranky. But there's something about structuring it this clearly, that if we get high, we will get correspondingly low. And if we live our life in such a way that we have a lot of highs, we're going to have a lot of lows. And if we have a lot of extreme highs, we're going to have a lot of extreme lows. And we're saying that, with some exceptions that we'll get at today, which is touching on the relationship between the pendulum and feelings of accomplishment, and also the relationship between the pendulum and the triangle, feelings of accomplishment and the triangle, in some ways are the same material. And to put it simply, feelings of accomplishment or accepted efforts will slow down the swing of the pendulum. And if we don't have them in place, it gets to be a vicious circle. And I'm jumping ahead, so this is way more next Sunday's material. So just bear with me while I introduce it briefly. If we get in a big high, and even if it's a high when we accomplish something, and then we come down to the low, and if we hit the big low, we will tend to sabotage our own feelings of accomplishment. And if we don't have any feelings of accomplishment in the deep or compulsive low, it will be deeper and longer. If we come down from the high and hit the low, and through luck or good management can hold on to the feelings of accomplishment, the low won't be nearly as dangerous, and it won't be nearly as destructive. Anyway, that's a little bit out of sequence. What I want to look at here is what swings the pendulum. And what swings the pendulum, there are two things. There's what's happening to us right now, someone phones us up and is terribly rude on the phone, and we have a pendulum swing around that. Or a car accident, or falling in love, having a crush on somebody, someone, the wrong person getting elected, the right team winning, our team winning. They're all pendulum swings that come from what is happening in the present. And we're not denying those, okay? But what we are very much looking at in the relationship between memory links and the pendulum is the fact that it's things in our past that very, very often swing our pendulum. And certainly the most destructive pendulum swings, and most frequently destructive pendulum swings, will be coming from memory links. And what memory links are is our life. In a way, memory links are simply our life, all the things that have happened to us, and the feelings we have about all the things that happened to us. So one of the things we have in memory links, in our work around memory links, is the extraordinary variety of the humankind. My memory links are as distinct as my DNA or my fingerprints. No one else has my life and my experience. And I feel in our field of work that individual diversity is often not given enough attention. And in memory links, we give it a great deal of attention. And the example I've used for a long time, I want to say as long as memory links have been around, is Christmas. There are, the first carols, the first Christmas music in the mall, or the first decorations going up. And for some people, that brings in a whole warmth of good feelings. For other people, it brings in horrible feelings. It can throw someone into a depression, just the fact of Christmas happening. One of the reasons I like to use Christmas as an example is finite. We've all got so many of them. There is only one Christmas in a year, there's not two. And so some people will have a flood of memories about good feelings, good family times, maybe excitement about receiving presents. It was always a warm day and we'd go to the beach. Now that's because I grew up in Australia and Christmas is the middle of summer. I didn't see snow until I was about 25 in India, actually. So, I give that an example of how specific it is. And I had a happy childhood. My sister and I always look forward to Christmas. It's exciting. But mainly I had a happy childhood. So Christmas just slotted in as a noted celebration amongst that happy childhood. So I hear the Christmas carols and those good feelings come up. Since then, I've had some lousy Christmases. I've had some, Christmases on my own, Christmases when a marriage was broken up, a family's been split up. But they came later in my life, okay? And I think Christmas is a good example of how, and a simple example of how how not always, but how often the early experiences are indelible. Someone else grows up in a family where, dad was a drunk, there's domestic violence. And Christmas was always unhappy or terrifying to a small child. And full of disappointment because, the money for the Christmas presents went in booze. That person going to have early memories of Christmas of not being enjoyable. Sort of negative memory links. But that person might have, maybe the father takes off. So there are a whole series of good Christmases because the father's not around anymore. But there will be a fragility about those memory links because of the early ones that were traumatic. So, and we talk in the material around memory links about, as our life goes on, we pick up positive memory links and negative memory links about certain things. So if I've got a series of negative memory links about not being recognized for my work and not being able to function in such a way that I do get recognized. So when the sort of lack of recognition comes in, and that one goes back, but it probably only goes back to my 20s, something like that. So, there was a lot of security in the family. But on the other hand, I did not do well at school. I was a slow learner. And I didn't get pressure from my parent, but I felt I did not do well. And all of a sudden, I don't know, 14 or 15, that all went away and I just did really well. I think I had a bit of something like dyslexia. Okay. I still have problems pronouncing words, and I still read slowly. And then I went through a series of career moves where I was a bit reckless, at times more than a bit. And so I didn't have a smooth career. And then I changed careers, became a couple of times, became very good at my work, but I couldn't play the office politics. So I developed a series of negative memory links about my work and being recognized for my work by authority. That's what it is, by authority. And I guess one of the purposes of memory links, because I realize as I talk about this example of myself, you know, our life is all tangled up, a mingled weave of good and ill together, to quote Shakespeare. And I think the mingled weave, or I think it might be mingled yarn, you know, the threads are all tangled up. And that's what memory links are like. So the tool of memory links, which I don't have an illustration with me. Maybe I'll do one in a moment. Little one. Yeah, you know, the memory links, in fact, are a tangle. And what we want to do with that tangle is break it down so we can understand it. And I guess that from, you know, therapy to counseling to coaching to AA to, you know, a good basketball coach will do that. You know, will untangle all the memory links. I'll need help because it's not as easy on my phone to see you all. Anyway, would someone like to come in there?
Something that I was thinking of when you're talking about the tangled and like Christmas, is how sometimes positive memory links can become negative ones when we've lost the person that we have the positive ones. Because I was thinking of Christmas, and how it got much sadder after my grandmother got passed. And instead of, and it's because of the positive memory, at least for me, positive memory links associated with her and Christmas. And now Christmas, I get very, very sad where I used to. So, and I was thinking about the tangle, about how positive grief can sometimes turn positive ones into negative ones.
Yeah, that can happen. And I guess one of the tools is to of use of this tool is to do things so that doesn't happen. You know, so we find a way to hold on to loss without without having it turn into negative memory link, and almost consciously doing that, okay? I mean, this is a tool where we can consciously, and you know, other tools come in if we want to use them, but not to make today too complicated. Okay, you know, I'm having Christmas on my own, and that could be, that could set up a negative memory link, okay? But if I do something like, yeah, it's almost a dimension of bitterness, right? I think at times we can also almost decide, you know, am I going to remember what an absolute horrible person he was, or am I going to remember some of the good times we had together? And that's where the memory link will swing the pendulum. And I just want to remember the times he or she was horrible, there was betrayal, there was violence, a marriage that breaks up in a great deal of hurtfulness. So Christmas comes around and the woman remembers him, right? Or the kids are there and they say, oh, I wonder what daddy's doing today. Now, the memory link can go back to those really awful times and swing the pendulum up to remembered rage, fear, hurt, betrayal. And that's going to create another negative memory link. Or the person could say, yeah, I don't know, but why don't you write him a letter, on Christmas Day, and I'll make sure it gets sent. So in that, it's a question. I mean, a whole lot of Helen is really playing with feelings. I mean, the way David said it, the only things we have are what we do and what we feel. The thing about, he said about this part of the work, all we have is the past as memories. Let's make them good. We need to make them good ones. So with Christmas, and again, there's a lot of common sense here. Some people will say, Christmas is coming around. I need to look after myself, okay? Because I don't have good memory links about Christmas, and it's all over the place. I can't escape it. So, I'm going to plan something. I'm going to go to a Pelham Christmas program, which we have had, which we could do again. Or someone else will just not prepare for it, not do anything about it, not face it. I guess there's a certain part of the work that facing our negative memory links is like facing our rejected efforts, okay? There's a certain place where we've got to look at them.
I was thinking about it feels to me like I had negative memory links that were knotted threads, that it was like a spider's web, but I felt like the fly that it actually being, tightly wrapped up for lunch for some later time. But anytime I tried to get loose, I would seem to tighten myself into a worse mess of exactly what you said, Cynthia, which is that even now the positive memory links were like tributaries that were just feeding this fast moving river of negativity. And the attraction to hurt was helpful for me to start to try to interrupt that. And I realized that I could actually, I noticed that I think that emotions they don't remember each other. So that when if I'm feeling happy, if I'm having a positive experience, if I'm feeling good in a moment, it all makes sense. And I remember all of the emotions that match the one that I'm feeling. And if I'm feeling, dare I say, hopeful and happy, I've had a happy childhood, and there's nothing that doesn't support that. The memories, it's like a plumb line that goes down and matches, the experience I'm having in this moment. And I find that really interesting. And I remember somebody, a therapist, telling me emotions don't remember each other. And I realized that depending on my headspace, the rejected effort of my life is a broad brushstroke. Depending on my mood, it's been a complete washout when I'm in a bad headspace. Looking back, it's an absolute disaster and embarrassment. Looking ahead, I don't see anything. And then it's and then if I can interrupt that and actually find myself in a new starting place, which is very, very difficult because you become very committed to the story. And I don't know what that is, the pleasant low, but it hurts to pull oneself out, because there are regrets for being in there for so long. But the idea of finding something that works. And I remember talking about finding a moments of true rest, for example, and beginning to build on those, and beginning with positive memory link that I can build on next time and the time after that. And if it doesn't work, not to abandon it, but to go back and try again if it's worked once. And so begin in that way, but also not to reject outright. I don't trust my brain, basically, just don't trust my thoughts and my emotions to evaluate my life. I'm just not letting I'm not letting my distorted judgment be the boss. And I'm experiencing something much more satisfying, which is I think you've got to be in the moment. I think there's got to be way more here and now in order to get free of those knots and memory, the threads of all of those negative memory links. Is just absolute terror to start going down that path behind me, or comparing to the left or right, or looking up ahead. I'm just like small feelings of accomplishment, accepted efforts that I don't allow to slip into rejected ones. Got to keep it small, protect it. And I'm starting to get it a little bit in my body about practicing this. And it feels really counterintuitive, like my worrying is what has kept, the sky from falling on my head, but it's actually just paralyzing. So I've been finally getting some good experiences that way, of practicing some of this stuff that we've been talking about for so long, but that I really haven't. It takes a while to get in the swing of it, to get your first hits. That's the hardest part, is to get the first hits of what can work with these tools. And I might as well say also that I'm aware that the context, I'm double vaxxed. I'm in a city that's getting close. We got some pretty good herd immunity hopes here. I'm in my office, and people are starting to come back into their offices. And so there's a lifting of the awful pressures of COVID. And I've been having huge swings of shock and feeling like crying and depressed and angry and every feeling that I don't think I could afford to have for as long as you're hunkered down in the bunker of shelter in place. And what I've noticed is that with my clients, and we were talking about bringing up clients and stuff, is that I think, and I wanted to ask about the pendulum for those of my clients who are presenting very angry. They want to reject everything, their work that they've been at remotely, and now they want to kick it in the ass. It all might be good stuff, but also the therapy that got them through, it's like negative memories for them. Me being in that horrible place in a Zoom screen for a year, it's like wanting to move on and get away from any associations, but I'm also very concerned because I'm not sure that any of us understand what's happening right now, except that we're all in huge pendulum swing of a high of the slight lifting of this pressure, but we could all get a half Nelson if we go up too fast. And people are coming out of their houses, but some are not okay. And they're scared, they're having panic attacks, doing normal things and having to run back to the way that it's been for so long. And some people are mourning the losses of having their pod and the safety of that and the beauty of that and feeling so close with just a handful of people, and that it might be going back to the way it was before. Anyway, there's a lot going on here, and I don't know what all it is, but it sure feels pendulum me. And for the vaccinations in the States to hit almost to the day, when we got hit with go home and stay there in March. And then there's like hope. I remember this comics, she's a Black woman who said, "Do not talk to me about hope. I will punch you in the throat." Really, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's also that, which is, I'm not coming out if you're going to whack me again. There's going to be like some more virulent strain or whatever. So it's like, you're not going to make a fool of me one more time. But anyway, there's just a huge range of parallel stuff that's happening. Me, clients, we're all in it together. That's the difference too, is that it's like, don't tell me about it's our trauma, and it's, as we say, unprecedented. So I'm not sure where we all are. I mean, I know that there's worse, there's second waves and it's worse than ever, and no vaccinations, and India is, this is specific to San Francisco and the lifting and, or the States or whatever. But no, it's not, Cynthia, because you're not experiencing what I am. I mean, this is different from what you got people out there not wearing masks and not getting vaccinated, and it's you're in a whole different, you have a different patch of the quilt, you know what I mean? So yeah, I can't say the States, it is specific to, it's even specific to San Francisco. I mean, this city compared to, let's say, like down south, in California, it can be really different. So
Let me just take that and put it sort of onto this a bit. I think one of the things we can say with the pendulum and memory links together, I think we can say this can help you understand what is going on. This can help you understand. No, I'm sorry. Second take, scrub that. It's starting with, we're all going to experience it differently, okay?
Yeah.
And this can help you understand the difference. And it can also help you understand what's going on for you. And it can also help you understand the frustration, the overwhelmingness, the, if you tell me to be helpful, I'll punch you in the face. Because we will have all experienced it differently. And then I think we got something to offer. Because I think on some level, people will sort of grab that, okay? Yeah, I don't experience the same as my mom or my dad or my boyfriend or Uncle Harry. Uncle Harry came through it fine.
Yeah.
Didn't seem to touch him. Someone else had wiped out by it, And I think we can put that first in terms of the pendulum, which is pretty straightforward. This in different ways, this is a demand, a threat, unprecedented. Some of us can feel out of our depth. Some of us can feel angry, and it would be true anywhere. But some people can feel angry, and then they can get sort of frustrated or upset by the people who don't feel angry. It almost parallels the sort of some of the political stuff in America.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, but the other thing, and then we can look at the memory links. What is your characteristic response to a situation like this? What is a characteristic response to, I had a happy childhood, okay? But my father and my mother went along to it because they had a marriage that relatives who I didn't know very well, that's another point in a minute, used to say, Jim and Ivy's marriage was made in heaven. They were a happy couple. But my father was seriously antisocial, okay? I'm embarrassed to say this, but I can remember times when some cousins would come to visit and we'd all have to sit in the house and be terribly quiet as if we weren't there, because my father didn't want to visit with the cousins who sort of adored him, okay? So COVID comes along and all of a sudden it's not that hard for me, okay? I almost got my father, in terms of this strange sort of antisocial thing he had, prepared me for, I don't know, 80 years later, literally, to be able to handle this thing of being isolated and not having anyone come and knock on the door. He was really happy if nobody came and knocked on the door. And I guess that's sort of the tangled yarn. The individuality of it is really complicated. But I think in terms of coming in what you're saying about clients, because I do want to deliver a straightforward service about that and answer questions more directly. So the question about, not to do with what to do with the clients who confused and negative, and perhaps rejecting of you because, you let them down because you let coronavirus and lockdown come along, right? I think it's possible to say, you know, we can look at what that does with our feelings. We can do how that puts you, client, up into a high of frustration, or for someone else it'll be a low of hopelessness and self-doubt. And in terms of the pendulum as a tool, there's a particular resonance that's very, very subtle, and it can be good or can be bad, between the pleasant low and the unpleasant low. And I think we can all understand that. It's on the high side, you know, it could be the resonance between an unpleasant high of jealousy and then someone immediately getting the reassurance that there wasn't anything there, and, you know, getting a loving embrace and a loving reassurance. So that unpleasant high of jealousy, almost without coming down, flips into a pleasant high of fulfilled love. On the but they're sort of easy to see, and they don't always go that way. I hope this is making sense, but on the low side, the relationship between the unpleasant low and the pleasant low, you know, the pleasant on the extreme, on the compulsive side, is really quite subtle. You know, on the one hand, it's, I don't believe in myself and no one loves me, and you know, it's all hopeless. And doubling down on that with, you know, guilt. You know, you know, I've been such a lousy wife, I've been such a lousy mother, whatever. Or I've been such a lousy husband, such a lousy father. They sort of feed on each other on that downside. And in this material, we say that, you know, that's where suicide can happen. That's where suicide often happens. Because on the compulsive low, people can fake that they're in a calm. Really. So I want to sort of just hold up the diagram, and with Cynthia's help sometime soon we'll have a better one. But this is a sort of classic diagram. You know, the crosses are negative memory links, the circles are positive memory links. We sort of present it that way, okay? Yeah, I've got a negative memory link. Funny one. Been embarrassed, but I've got a very heavy negative memory link about the person who used to be part of my organization, who's not anymore, who did the really good diagram on the memory links. Okay, so I don't want to use his memory link diagram, so I got to develop my own. And we can, anyway, going back to the client, so you can present that, okay? You know, what is this circumstance doing to the movement of your emotions? That's essentially what the pendulum is. And then rather quickly, I feel, we can come in with the memory links, because it's the memory links that are pushing that. With most people, I don't know. I don't know if it's most people. Probably something like half and half. You know, for the people who almost can't handle it, Some is going to be an unpleasant high. Some is going to be an unpleasant low. But it's going to be compulsive pendulum swings. And of course, walking back into life, having been locked down. So you walk into the office, or you walk in to see your therapist, or you walk in and see your boss, or you walk into a cafe you really like, or the cafe you really like is closed forever. There's going to be a whole, and all the memory links are about that cafe. And how those memory links are going to swing the pendulum. I think it can, this, and it needs a better diagram. I do believe that this tool can give people some reassurance. There's a certain way to use the pendulum that can give someone some reassurance about what's happening to them. Okay. Someone could say to me, come on, Peter, in hello. Look at all the goddamn stuff that happened to you over the last 8 years. If you're not in hello, you're bonkers. Divorce, move, looking like I was going to lose everything, because that Pelham was going to collapse. Certainly losing my wife, half my family. It was her family, not mine. A whole lot of stuff. So you're a bit low. I remember doing I was very worried once that my youngest daughter was stealing money. And I did some work on it. I can't remember who it was. Someone else in the group. Could have been you, Nikki. And someone said to me, and how old is she? And I go on, yeah, but how old is she? She's 13, but how old is she? And just think over and over again. A 13-year-old girl is supposed to steal money. That's part of growing up. This sort of reassurance, that wasn't the reassurance of someone saying, of course, of course you're going to be upset. And I think what we've got in the Pelham tools is a way to, and it is in Attraction to Hurt and Callousing, we've got a way to put stuff in which, without saying it, is delivering the message that bitterness and hopelessness is not a very good idea. And the pendulum is useful about that because of the vividness of it, I think. Just the vividness of it, the vividness of the diagram. I'm going on a bit much, I know. Someone else want to come in? Do you want to come in, Cynthia?
Yeah, I was thinking, because I used to, and I'm not bothered by memory links the way I used to be. I had some that would just immediately send me into swings, and some of it I had some spiritual work done, but some of it I think has to do, and it's something I kind of recommended. It worked really well, was learning Japanese and learning a different language. It's the strangest thing that I have different memory links in each language, including things taste different if I'm only thinking in Japanese. Foods that I don't like in English, I'd like when I'm in Japanese. It's really wild. And like one of them I was looking at, because I just realized this, because I'm working with my memory links of trying to get eating vegetables to be an accepted effort, and eating healthy foods to be an accepted effort. But I was thinking, I did this and I talked about this a few times ago of how that happened with doing dishes because I had some pretty awful memory links around dishes, but now it's not so bad and I like it. And I realized it wasn't just doing my little habit where I checked it off. It's also the fact that when I was doing dishes is when it was sort of always like kind of Japanese study time. I'd be listening to something in Japanese, I'd be watching something in Japanese. So now I have doing dishes associated with listening things in Japanese, and and it's not, I mean, I don't always want to do it, sometimes procrastinate, but it's not all those really horrible memory links from the past don't bother me anymore. Because I thought this like, oh gosh, this doesn't bother me anymore. I wonder why that is. And then it dawned on me about in particular changing and specifically changing the language. It's kind of wild how changing the language will change things. And it's not just me. Actually, there's it might be going a little off tangent, but they actually did a study of people. It was people from Japan who were bilingual and living in the United States, and they asked them a question in English to be responded to in English, and they asked them the same question in Japanese to be responded to in Japanese. And when and one of them was if you wanted to marry somebody that your parents didn't like and your family was against. In English, they would respond, "Oh, I just do what I wanted to do anyways." In Japanese, they were saying, "Oh, that would make me very sad." It was the same question. So I just thought that was interesting how memory works, and it's weird.
I think it's how memory works, but it's also how we can change. We really should spend time on this over a couple of weeks. So I'm going to put the triangle bit 2 weeks from today. Today is going to still be on memory links. Today week, sorry. Yeah, that's right. Because there's a lot of stuff here. Because if you can do some of the things you're talking about, you can change past memory links into positive ones. You can do that. And that's, I think, where the diagram is useful.
What's on the bottom?
Vivid.
What's on the bottom, Peter?
What's on the bottom is the bit I will do now. And that's and I think this is relevant to COVID and relevant to your client. And I wanted to sort of get the basic definition of memory links and the one line and, the arrow down is the present and the X's are negative memory links and the circles are positive memory links. So I wanted to get that diagram sort of established, okay? The bottom one is what we call overwhelming memory link moments, okay? And that is when a whole bunch of memory links come together, okay? And I think, so let me take the Christmas thing. There's Christmas, and then, someone gives me, a lovely art book set in about Sicily. And this is language stuff almost. I get a phone call from my friend and manager in Italy. So I've got these extra positive things coming in on that moment about Christmas, okay? And then, the way it works out with my kids is good. My kids occasionally say very complimentary things to me. And they say, oh, you gave us such a good childhood, or something like this. Okay. I was thinking about when we were at the Italy, Pestum. So those different things come in to create that very positive, overwhelming referral moment. So I'm a bit overwhelmed by the pleasure of it. But the reverse is true. And we usually use overwhelming referral moments to look at the times that could really break someone. And the concept of overwhelming referral moments is what a mental breakdown is. That old-fashioned term, someone having a mental breakdown. So Christmas is coming along, and then, the teenage boy gets pulled over. I don't want to use that example. Christmas is coming along. There's a lot of bad things around Christmas time. And then someone's favorite Uncle Harry happens to die at that time. Okay. But Uncle Harry broke up with the family because of the domestic abuse. So that's another one. Plus the snow comes down and no one can get out. The boiler breaks down and cash has been short. There's a lot of memory links about cash being short. The boiler breaks down. So you've got sort of uncle and, the report card comes from school and it's not very good. And the teacher is saying, it would really help if you spent more time with Cecilia's homework. And, it's a single mum with 3 kids. Thank you very much. So you've got, authority criticizing, losing Uncle Harry, the weather being lousy, and the fear about money and eating coming in. So you got sort of 4 things all coming in to reinforce what was already a negative memory link about Christmas. And it's just too much. And I think some of the too much quality of the coronavirus thing, I think is like that. I think for a lot of people, and I think they would all be different, but it just sort of, it almost highlights everything. It puts everything into much more, luminous colors. And I think so. You've got 4 or 5 things going on with someone. It's not just about the office. It's not just about, client relationship with therapists. It's got a whole lot of other stuff coming in. And I think with this diagram, the bottom one, we can sort of look at that, of course, when the overwhelming referral moment is positive, that sort of happiness, and you don't analyze happiness too much. What are all the different strands in me feeling really good today? I mean, it may or may not be useful, but at times it can be a bit. Yeah, it can be a bit of a. Do you have to analyze everything? Why can't we just enjoy it? But on the negative side, on the destructive side, the overwhelming referral moment, well, to use that word, can overwhelm somebody.
Question. So I have times when someone will say something or even speak in a certain tone, or a series of complicated things will happen. And memory links from way, way back will make it so that my body physically locks up. Like every muscle goes rigid and I can't move. And I'm sitting here in my head screaming, this isn't that bad, just like twitch a finger or something, dang it. And until the moment breaks, nothing will move. What does contribution training say is going on there?
Okay, well, when, your question, when something comes in and it just paralyzes us, I guess what contribution training is saying, that it's something like an overwhelming referral moment. I guess we're also saying that memory links go back a long way. So when that comes in and locks down, your question, I think what contribution training is saying, let's grab onto the pendulum, okay? Let's try and make sure it doesn't go too high. And then it might be a question of, going after 30 seconds true rest, 2 minutes of some quick feelings of accomplishment. Because I think it is, and one of the things that contribution training would say about that is more than one thing going on, okay? So, and from our side, go slow, make sure you're listening. And then I guess if we, translate that from, being a helper to handling it yourself, there's probably something like, I'm not going to be able to listen to myself about this unless I'm sort of close to the middle of the pendulum, because I'll just go off with something.
Here's the question. How do you calm yourself when your body is not under your control, which is a terrifying experience?
Yeah, I guess, your question, what do you do when your body's not under your control? I guess we'd want to say that, we approach that with humility. We're not saying we've got, complete answers. But I think we would say we have some really useful answers, okay? And just putting, and it depends, it's individual, okay? But I would say for some of us, I would say for you, it's true for me when it's not the same. It's not a bodily thing with me. I sort of, can go into a particular sort of hopelessness. That's where sort of purpose comes in, okay? So I might not be able to give up the hopelessness, or someone, you might not be able to get control of your body, but I can still sort of touch my purpose, okay? I think it's like touching it. And there's a way that self-belief, isn't it? It sort of goes into the pride work we did here. Yeah, because I think for me, it sort of comes down at times when I feel I'm struggling against the forces of conventionality, my field of work. They can't take this away from me. Okay, it's a funny sort of thing I have. They can't take that away from me. They can't take away from me the stuff I did with foster carers. I just sort of hold on to it. I think it's sort of a bit of a stiff, it's like pouring a full glass of bourbon and drinking it straight. Okay. Yeah, Cynthia.
Well, one thing, I don't know if this is something in contribution training and where, but one of the two things I do when I get into these overwhelming, because one thing is I sort of just visualize it as a storm. There's a storm that's happening and I'm just going to hunker down and wait for the storm to pass. And not being able to do something is actually probably more useful than, sometimes when I get into highs and I just want to do something and just sort of wait for the storm to pass before doing something. And the other thing for me with overwhelming stuff is to sort of hold on, find one thing that I can do. And even if that one thing I can do is take a deep breath, and because I race, I've got all these things and this and this and this and this and this and this. And I said, okay, one thing, just right now, what am I going to do? And like I said, it might be stay still. It might be take a breath. And if you can't move, maybe just, allowing that to be the case. I don't have to do something, just saying to myself, I don't have to do something right now, just, and focus it down to that one pinpoint thing. And at least for me, that really helps to start bringing the pendulum back under control, keeping that, even if I'm like in a super deeper, real low, okay, what's one thing I can actually do right now? I can get out of the bed, and I can do that. And then let myself, and still all the voices is, well, all you did was this. No, this was what I was supposed to do. And I did it. Well done. Okay. Make coffee, and having that, because my mind will go all, if I let it will just, so that's, I don't know if that's
Yeah,
helpful or
where I'd
part of
say
it.
the applications of the tools are very individual, because that bit you said wouldn't work for me, but it worked for you. And it's, it's stretching it a little bit, but I'd say the one I was saying could work for me and possibly work for Elizabeth, is sort of the purpose side. The one you're saying is more the true rest side. Okay, so it's choosing the tools.
See,
Sorry.
I'm having trouble applying either of those to my situation.
Okay.
Can I come in here?
Yeah.
Please.
So, well, I think I was just writing a note to Elizabeth that I think this is a bit where the truth line comes in, that we don't have the whole of the truth. And what I mean by that is, I think, Elizabeth, from knowing you, I think you're describing, a physiological response that when you're saying you haven't got control of your body. And I think that very difficult experiences that override our thinking and feeling brain and take us into really bodily things, in other words, trauma responses, there are some other methods that are dealing with that explicitly. And I think that we are, well, the only things that David Penn's saying, the only things that are real are what you do and what you feel, is stating it in an area where of agency, if you like. So I don't know what you would say, Peter, but that's how it seems. It's a bit, it's not an area where we have a whole lot of strength because there is such a basis in using tools thinkingly, as it were.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's no, Elizabeth.
Oh, that was me interrupting.
That was Tamara, not me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my screen's funny. Yeah, all of that. And I, where I am now, I'm sort of teaching these tools. It's teaching the tools. And I sort of stretch things here because I want the teaching to be very clear. But using, because one of my approaches as a practitioner is very clear, and that is try anything. I'm absolutely of the school, try a whole bunch of different things, see what'll work for you, and whatever those are. So it'd almost be, I guess at times, I think the Pelin approach is almost using the tools to be able to get out of Pelin if Pelin at this point in time doesn't work for you. And that's it's the no rule, it's the truth line, advisors, gentleness.
The triangle with the reflection and then the change and then the changing.
Yeah, and however, and someone, might, it's a bit like, as in the therapeutic side of the work, I use two chairs all the time. That's what I do. When I can, physically. Being in the room with someone where there's chairs. But, if someone doesn't want to do chair work, as I call it, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I even say that, if you're talking to the furniture, maybe you need a therapist, okay? So I think it's not being sort of wedded. I think on the one hand, it's presenting someone something very vividly because that's what we have. But then it's not being wedded to it. As Mary said, there are a lot of different ways to look at different things. One of the ways to see that very clearly, there's nothing in Pelin that says it would be a really, really good idea if you looked at the memory links, okay? That's not in our method. Some people come through from trauma to addiction to heartbreak to loss without looking back into the past, without looking into their memory links. It's just true. Some different ways, people, there's not one way people live a good life. And that's all over strata material, isn't it? Just to bring the different things together.
It's really pretty frustrating to know that it's memory links and to know that it's the pendulum and not to have sort of a Pelin solution to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't want to back off a Pelin solution to it, okay? I think what I'd say the Pelin solution to it would be, which I think on some level, the work's all about this anyway, using the Pelham tools to build up almost peripheral strengths, okay? If the Pelham tools don't work centrally, you know, they don't have a neat answer to how can I get back control of my body when these things happen to me. And I guess what the ambition of the Pelham tools are, we may not have something to address that directly, but I think bringing up peripheral, I'm almost like a, you know, like the problem is in the middle and we can't quite get at it, but we're building up these strengths around it, okay? So
That makes sense.
But at the same time, in Mary's point, absolutely, we need to take in that these are sort of peripheral partial solutions to this, okay? We're not sort of coming in and saying, oh, well, if you really, really, really did the pendulum, it will absolutely work for you. No, you can never say that about tools. And then I think it opens up the search. Okay, advisors, other approaches, what might work. Yeah, Pelham's very, very empirical. Pelham is very sort of, one thing we say about the tools, they're tried and tested and finally honed, but the other thing we say about them is experimental. And that's why I bring in green eggs and ham. It might work, it might not, but it's worth a try. And then I think if we're building up that peripheral strength, because that's all we can do, then I think we can use that strength to look for solutions outside of Pelham. And I'm always into experimenting, okay? And then I guess the aim would be, in terms of your question, the aim would be to use the Pelham tools and with advisors, you know, a search for being creative, imaginative about searching for solutions, getting support about that search for advisors. And then the sort of tools work, I think, to help with the search, okay? And I think we've got it in the material because, you know, we're not looking at it in this particular series on the pendulum and the more definite series on the pendulum and memory links, but, you know, advisors are absolutely sort of central there. Central. And
Right.
then, yeah. And at the same time, I think what the pendulum can give us in terms of building up what I'm calling peripheral strengths, I think it can give us some perspective, okay? Can give us some perspective on the initial question you asked about sort of being out of control, being able to not control it. And I think it's, yeah, go. Does anyone else want to come in? Because I can't see it. I'm sorry.
I'm interested in general to just wonder about this trauma piece when there's the body, there's dissociation where, Mary had said that the idea of having a personal agency or being able to engage with the cognitive function is just not available. And, the physical body shutdown, pain. I don't know where, that there's these tools to work them around. There's one thing that has helped me. I don't know if there's anything more so far, but it's just been actually finding myself able to name that I'm not here, that this is where I'm not available to myself, and bring in more patience and to not push from that place, so I don't hurt myself with my thoughts or rejected efforts, that I just know here I sit. And I also think that there's something very powerful about positive reframing with negative memory links, that the narrative is also attached to the memory links, and that a positive renaming can begin to actually go back in time, or even now, where I know that when we were speaking, Peter, that I said that could lend gravitas to the what I carry is a lot of shame through COVID. But we're not being given much to honor what we've been through in the past year, in that way that we honor the people who've died and the people who've lost people to COVID. But for those of us who have been pushed through this 1 year mark, globally, and that if there were more gravitas, or what you were saying about holding to the positive on the low end of the pendulum, where the positive is that there's some honor in all of this, and that this has been a profound experience and not just a rejected, something to just forget and speedily move away from. And
Yeah, I think we've got to stop in a moment, but I think there are a number of things there, and we can, because Wednesday's examples, right? So this can be, we can go straight from here into the examples on Wednesday. But I think, and perhaps about those physical things, and perhaps about COVID, I think, your word, Elizabeth, about feeling out of control, or feeling you can't have control. You almost can't have it, or can't find it, not allowed it, all of that. And I think the point, and this is different for me, this is a sort of development of this work, is letting go of some of my sort of Pellin party policy, if I could use that phrase, that naming something, and naming something with gravitas and with some pride. And, as I told you, where I got that from was a comic book, Doonesbury, and you know, this character in Doonesbury had been there for decades, for those of us who follow that comic strip. To be given a psychiatric diagnosis gave him dignity and gravitas, right? He wasn't just this mad guy who was shooting up his garage and scaring his daughter to death. He had something called PTSD, and there were people who sort of took that seriously and him seriously. And yeah, it's hardly a textbook in my field, but I think the point, and you know, I've got a long history of being opposed to all those initials, very long history. But seeing it, hey, you know, maybe there's something in being able to name something and taking the gravitas of it, taking even the, you know, the fear of it.
Can I just say something really quick? Because I just thought of something, and it was really interesting when Peter and Elizabeth were saying what I was saying wasn't going to work for them. I realized, oh gosh, is that something individual in me? And I realized that my strategy is by focusing down to one thing I could do. It triggers the part of me that I do have a part of me that handles crises. And that's very good at handling crises. And when I bring it down to that, I invoke that part of me. So I'm wondering about, you know, having a part of, you know, invoking the part that handles that kind of thing. I don't know. That's something that just came to me.
If I can respond to that for just a second.
Yeah.
The problem with me is that is what has happened in that moment, is that a part of me has been evoked that historically found freezing in place the safest way to cope with the crisis she found herself in. So the key in that case is getting her to let go. Anyway, I'm not like rejecting what you've said. It's just very interesting because, this is what has happened.
Yeah. I think that's a good note to end on, and we'll continue with this on Wednesday, Examples Day. But I think there is something in our work, in being the moment, that is, this is what happened, you know, and this is right now at this moment, this is what I see happen to me. I think it's a good place to ground ourselves, definitely. Okay. Well, thank you for today. Thank you for coming. I get into these so I don't know if it comes across, but so sort of intensely that I forget, you know, you're on the other side of the world and it's a different time of the day. So coming back to that, yeah, I'm in Norfolk in England, and it's I think it's 20 to 8 in the evening. Do you want to go next, Nikki? Ending up.
Nikki left at some point.
Oh, Mary, see you there.
Yeah, I'm Mary in Rosarito Beach, and it's 20 to 12.
Okay, Tamara.
You're muted, Tamara.
Tomorrow in San Francisco, the sun popped out and it went back. It's just gray fog. And I'm having some people in my backyard. I'm hosting a little outside something or other with pastries.
Okay.
So I have anxiety about that. And it's 11:42 a.m. here.
Okay. Cynthia.
Cynthia, I'm in Kankakee, and it's 1:42 in the afternoon, and it's still sunny and cold.
Okay. We're ending up.
I'm Elizabeth. It's 11:42 in Eugene, Oregon. Still cloudy. And I'm really sorry if I derailed the topic.
No way. No way. You deepened the topic for sure. Definitely. Yeah. And I'll make sure I say that often. Okay. Yeah. And thanks for it. Okay. Well, we'll end there for today. And I'll see you on Wednesday. Watch this space. Okay. Bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye.